When Sega dropped its New Era, New Energy trailer, there was one particular game that drew my attention more than any of the others. This announcement was part of the Power Surge reveal at the Game Awards 2023, where Sega unveiled 5 new titles in development, based on some of their classic IPs: Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage and Shinobi. These are all old Sega game franchises that I adore, especially Golden Axe and Streets of Rage. But out of all of them, it was the new Shinobi that especially caught my eye, on account of the fact it appeared to be retaining the traditional 2D platformer style of the old 8 and 16-bit Shinobi games, as opposed to being 3D reimaginings like Golden Axe and Streets of Rage. And it was also being developed by Parisian game studio Lizard Cube. I've got a lot of time for Lizard Cube, after first becoming aware of them following their exceptionally good remake of my favourite Sega Master System game of all time, Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap. They kept the base gameplay intact, but updated the experience with fantastic looking hand-drawn graphics and some slight changes to the controls that made accessing your magic attacks a bit easier, seeing as how most modern controllers now have more than 2 buttons, unlike the old Sega Master System pad. They also expanded on the original's gameplay slightly, by including brand new secret areas for each of the animal forms and your human form to complete as well. Their next project was another beautifully hand-drawn 2D game, and something else I couldn't wait to get my hands on as soon as it was released: Streets of Rage 4. A modern day sequel to one of the Mega Drive's most beloved game series of all time. With Streets of Rage 1 and 2 not just being 2 of my favourite beat 'em ups of all time, but 2 of my actual favourite games ever. Once again, Lizard Cube delivered the goods here with Streets of Rage 4, keeping the core gameplay and feel of the original games intact, but adding in new features, new characters and alternative movesets, as well as multiple unlockable characters both new and retro, and bringing back Streets of Rage veteran composer Yuzo Koshiro on some of the soundtrack duties, as well as adding a 4-player local play option and 2-player online. Streets of Rage 4 was an absolutely amazing modern addition to the series, and proved that Lizard Cube really were a safe pair of hands when it came to creating new games based on old IPs, as well as beautiful looking remakes of old ones. So this is why, for me at any rate, the announcement of a brand new 2D Shinobi game, specifically created by Lizard Cube, is especially exciting. You see, I'm a massive fan of the old Shinobi games. I played the original 1987 Shinobi in the arcade before I even owned any Sega consoles, and was immediately taken in by its side-scrolling platform action, as the protagonist, Joe Musashi, shurikened and katana slashed his way through 5 levels of ninja, samurai, skeletons and all sorts of other weird baddies and bosses. When I got a Sega Master System for a birthday a year or so after this, Shinobi was the game I got with it, and despite obviously being visually scaled down from its Sega System 16 board big brother, the Master System game was an incredibly faithful port. When I upgraded to a Sega Mega Drive around the early 1990s, the second game I got for it was Revenge of Shinobi, which was known as the Super Shinobi in Japan. This was a game I was incredibly hyped to play, after seeing some gorgeous screenshots of it in Computer and Video Games magazine, along with a very positive review. As one of the very first 16-bit games I'd ever played, the positive experience of Revenge of Shinobi is permanently etched in my memory. It was such an unbelievable upgrade compared to the old Sega Master System version. It just oozed quality. The graphics felt to me as good as anything that you would have seen in a contemporary arcade game. It played brilliantly and had some of the most amazing music I'd ever heard on a home system, courtesy of Yuzo Koshiro. game even had an incredible animated introduction, where the initially shadowy figure of Joe Musashi, silhouetted by lightning, deflects attacks from an unseen assailant. It was a moody cinematic sequence that really set the tone for the game's ninja revenge narrative. Much like Streets of Rage 2, it remains to this day one of my all-time favourite games. Sometime after this, I got to play its arcade sequel, Shadow Dancer. I very much enjoyed it and was, at the time, disappointed that the later Mega Drive port was not a direct conversion. Although in hindsight now, I think possibly it's arguably the better game of the two. As a Shinobi offshoot that isn't technically part of the main series, Shadow Dancer is a little bit of a funny one. I never actually owned it back in the day, but I did borrow it off a friend for a while, and I must admit I really like it. I think it's got great graphics and sound. It is brutally hard though. It's got one-hit kills, so it's actually a bit more similar to the original arcade Shinobi than something like Revenge of Shinobi or the Master System Shinobi. Interestingly, although the Mega Drive version of Shadow Dancer was completely different to the arcade version, when the Sega Master System got a port of it, the Sega Master System version is actually a straight port. So although Shadow Dancer is technically considered a spin-off, the Revenge of Shinobi did finally get its own proper sequel in 1993 in the form of Shinobi 3: Return of the Ninja Master. For some reason, I never purchased Shinobi 3 on the Mega Drive back in the day. I don't know why now. Maybe I felt I had enough platformers already? I think possibly I might have seen a review of it in a magazine that was a little bit lukewarm. So it's something I only discovered as an adult gamer. And oh man, I missed out by not picking this up back then, as it really is a classic. It actually expands on the gameplay of Revenge, giving Joe some new skills, including the ability to run, a new blocking move to repel enemy projectiles, and a wall climbing ability. Oh, and Joe also has a new dive kick ability as well. It's got some of the absolute best graphics you'll ever see on the Mega Drive, and another amazing Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack. No, seriously right, some of the tunes in this are just mind-blowingly good. You know, just to satisfy my own curiosity, to see if there was a specific review that did put me off the game back in the 90s when it first released, I just did a quick Google search, and sure enough it was the review by Mean Machines. Now, I absolutely love Mean Machines. It was my absolute favourite gaming mag back in the day. And the score they've given it here, 88%, would be a respectable score by any other standards. But just the summary where they said it's not as good as Revenge of Shinobi, I think is what really stuck in my brain. It seems kind of mad as well that they're criticising the game for not adding more to the concept, when you've got all the added bits that we've already talked about, like the wall climbing, the jump kick, the ability to run, the ability to block. And then that's not including stuff like that jet ski level, and the bit where you get to ride on Joe Musashi's horse. I don't know if maybe the Mean Machine lads were just feeling a little bit jaded about platformers in general at this point, because this is just such an incredible game. I really don't get why they seem to heap it with faint praise. So we've established I'm a big Shinobi fan. So I know there's some spin-off versions we haven't spoken about, like the Cyber Shinobi and Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. Plus you've also got the excellent Game Gear Shinobi games as well, and some additional Game Boy Advance and PS2 games, including that 3D PS2 Shinobi game, which I tried a demo of and I didn't really like all that much. But really, I just wanted to concentrate on the main series games and Shadow Dancer here, just to really provide a little bit of context as to why I was so excited about the announcement of this particular Shinobi game. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the big appeal of this new version that was announced was that they'd kept it 2D and weren't planning to try and reinvent the wheel with the 3D-ified version of Shinobi, and it was being made by Lizard Cube. As soon as the game was available for pre-sale, I put a pre-order in, confident that Lizard Cube wouldn't let me down. So when I saw a news alert last week that a demo of the game had been made available for download that very day, that was a very, very nice surprise, as I'd not heard that there were any plans for a demo. So let's get our teeth stuck into Shinobi Art of Vengeance, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. This is the PlayStation 4 version that I'm playing, but I believe the demo is also available on Xbox Series, PS5, Steam and Switch. So I'm extremely pleased to report the demo has not disappointed. The 2D hand-drawn graphics look absolutely beautiful, not only providing a great sense of style to the game, but also scale, with lots of detail in the backgrounds, with the game zooming in and out of the action at times to take everything in. Joe Musashi is instantly recognisable, and the first few enemies you encounter are very similar to the traditional ninja and soldiers from the Shinobi games of old. The controls are sublime. Joe immediately feels like Joe in the way he controls, right down to his double somersault jump. One immediate difference you'll notice though, is the game doesn't start you off with any projectiles, but you do acquire a limited supply of kunai throwing knives in the game as you progress. So there's more of a heavy emphasis on melee combat using a katana here than the old 8 and 16-bit Shinobi games. You have a light and heavy attack which can be chained into combos, with new attack combos becoming available to purchase as you play through. The action feels fast-paced and intuitive, and transitions seamlessly between platforming and combat. You also have a dash move that can be used in the air along with Joe's somersault, that becomes essential in later parts of the game when trying to reach faraway platforms. The dash move can also be chained with attacks to vault over baddies. As you inflict damage on the bad guys and their health gauge goes down, a smaller white gauge underneath begins to fill up. Once it's full, a Japanese kanji symbol appears over the bad guy's head, indicating you can now perform a stylish looking execution move on them. The execution moves can also be chained. Along with the new combat system, Joe has also attained another of his Shinobi 3 abilities, and is able to climb and hang from certain types of walls and ceilings. The ninja magic system has also had a bit of a revamp as well, with a new amulet system that lets you assign certain magic attacks, known as ninpo, I think that's how you pronounce it, to specific buttons. There's also a screen-filling super magic move you can acquire towards the end of the demo, which is activated in a slightly different way. So the gameplay has changed a bit from the Shinobi games of old, but there was nothing to me here that felt out of place. All of Joe's new abilities and the combo system feel like a natural evolution of the gameplay. Something else that's evolved too is the layout of the levels, which are now, as you'd expect from a modern game, much larger. Whilst they still retain the left to right structure of a traditional platformer, there are now secret areas to discover, some of which you'll only be able to access after acquiring certain abilities. This means the game encourages repeat playthroughs through the stage as you try to locate the secret areas that weren't accessible earlier. As such, they are generously served as save points, and there is now also a stage map. It feels like a slightly more Metroidvania style of gameplay compared to the older Shinobi games, but again, this feels to me like a natural evolution of the gameplay and not something totally out of place. The music didn't jump out at me quite as much as the visuals and gameplay. Rather than the straight up electronic soundtrack of the old Shinobi games, Art of Vengeance's soundtrack has what sounds like more traditional Japanese instruments, with a bit more of an ambient vibe, which I saw described elsewhere as having a trip-hop sound. Now, I come from Bristol, the home of trip-hop, and I can't say there was anything in the soundtrack that really made me think of that. Maybe I need to have a bit more of a listen to it and come up with more of an opinion, but at the moment, don't dislike the soundtrack, it just didn't really jump out and grab me that much. It just didn't seem quite as memorable as some of those classic Shinobi tunes of old. It does feel very fitting to the environment of the first stage though, as you fight your way through the Oboro village. So the game looks great and plays great, but was there anything about it I didn't like, you might ask? After my second playthrough, my map unfortunately glitched out and now only shows Joe stuck in one location, no matter where I move to. I did tweet Lizardcube about this, who responded very quickly and said they will look into it, so hopefully this glitch won't be in the finished game. Gameplay wise, the only thing I didn't like was the sudden massive jump in difficulty in one of the secret areas you can access called the Ankou Rift. The level of absolutely pixel perfect jumping and the timing required to miss the spiky balls and spiky walls is just absolutely insane. I spent about half an hour trying to clear it before deciding that particular juice just wasn't worth the squeeze. This is an optional area, so it's not essential to completing the demo, but it looks like it's something you'll need to do to access a certain unlockable in the main game, so this did sully the experience for me slightly. I have seen videos of people completing this, including my Twitter pal Retro Martin, so it is possible, but I just hope Lizardcube make it a smidge easier in the full game, because it's just so hard it's frustrating me and it's not fun. Just make some of those wall jumps just a fraction less insta-death pixel perfect. There are a couple of tricky platforming sections in the old Revenge of Shinobi, but nothing anywhere near as hard as this. Getting into real nitpicky territory here. I also wasn't a massive fan of the story elements woven into the gameplay, with the cutscenes and voice acting. This just felt a bit, unnecessary? Having said that though, in one of the cutscenes towards the end of the game, I could have sworn that I heard the bass tones of Clancy Brown, aka the Kurgan from Highlander, as the big boss. I'm a huge fan of Mr. Brown, so if that is him, that is actually quite a cool addition. Joe himself also stays stoically mute, which I am very pleased to hear and see. There's also an arcade mode that unlocks, so you can just play through the game without the story stuff. So, despite these very minor niggles, I was hella impressed with this demo. The game is doing everything I wanted it to. Classic side-scrolling gameplay with modern visuals and an evolution of the existing gameplay. It's really whet my appetite for the full game, and I really can't wait to get stuck into it now. So, are you an old school Shinobi fan? Have you given the demo a try, and if so, what did you think of it? Do you wish the gameplay was more classic Shinobi, with one-hit projectile kills? Or are you happy with the new melee combat beat-em-up combo style? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I am going to wrap things up there. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about my thoughts about the new Shinobi Art of Vengeance demo, and my quick trip down memory lane with the old games at the start. So I have been Mr. Thunderwing, and I will catch you for another video sometime soon.